Hey there, Pillowfort wizards and witches. If you're like me, then you've been waiting for your ticket to the wizarding school of your choice. I might be 26, but I'm still holding out that USPS is just delayed and my letter will arrive next week. In the meantime, let's take a look at Spells and Secrets, which lets you attend a wizarding school, learn new spells, fight off a multitude of enemies and bosses, and save classmates from their perilous fate. I'm looking at you, Chad. What makes it special is all of this is done through a roguelite lens, which creates diversity and surprise every time you play. So, without further ado, hop on your brooms, vacuums, or Roombas for you high-tech 21st century magicians, and let's visit the magical school of Greifenstein. Let's start by highlighting what is happening at our new school. Upon arrival, we soon find out that the school is under attack by some dark forces led by a mysterious masked figure. Our goal is to explore the ever-changing floors and layout of the castle in attempts to learn new magic and save our classmates. As we progress deeper, we will find artifacts to enhance our spells, potions to boost our combat, and even a salesperson who, even though needs to hit his profit margin, will sell you useful artifacts and items to increase your chances of moving forward. Our goal is to get as far as possible and uncover as many mysteries as we can. This is pretty standard for what you'll find in most roguelites, but Spells and Secrets has a clever way to explain why losing doesn't result in your immediate demise, aka death. You see, we're also looking for our griffin friend that we met at the start of the game, as they granted us a treasured and rare griffin feather, which is an item that will push aside death as if it were nothing. Losing will send you back to the courtyard or hub area of Greifenstein. However, you get to keep all the experience that you gained from a run, and you can use it to upgrade your known spells or to unlock new ones. Luckily, we aren't in this journey on our own, even if every other student is scared to enter the castle. I mean, who would blame them? They aren't the chosen one like I am. In the courtyard, there are multiple teachers and club leaders that you can interact with to learn or upgrade your spells. You'll start by learning all your Year 1 spells, then Year 2, all the way up to Year 4. Once you've unlocked a spell, you'll know it forever. You'll also find a griffin statue that will allow you to upgrade your passive stats, such as health, shield, mana, and mana regen. That about covers the foundation of the game and what you can expect. Spells and Secrets is very much a roguelite, so you can expect to increase your power in between runs. I personally prefer this style over roguelikes, which essentially starts you off at the same power every run. Now that you know the essentials, let's look at the specific features and components of the game. I'm going to put spells as its own category, because this is where Spells and Secrets sets itself apart from most other roguelites. You'll unlock over 20 unique spells during your enrollment at Greifenstein, and let me tell you, it can definitely be overwhelming learning how to optimally use every spell. I've completely beat the game, and I only feel comfortable with using around 5 spells in my combat rotation. There's definitely a learning curve to the game, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Part of what makes the spells harder than just pressing a button is that you can only have 3 spells slotted to use at a time. However, that doesn't mean you are restricted to using only 3 spells in the middle of a fight. Let me explain. At any one time, you can have 2 main spells slotted and 1 flex spell. These main spells can be swapped, however, you have to open up your spell thesaurus to manually change them, so it doesn't make much sense to do it in the middle of the battle. However, your flex spells can be cycled mid-fight to any of your other activated spells. This is where most of the learning curve comes into play, because to start, it's pretty difficult to keep track of your flex spell, and which one you want to switch to. You're able to adjust which spell comes up next on the flex wheel, which adds some ease of use to the function, but you'll still find yourself dodging fireballs and icicles while frantically attempting to switch to the shield spell. I quite enjoyed this chaos and planning, as I soon found spells and combos that I favored. I will note that the controls and controller are especially difficult when you're attempting to navigate between selecting spells and locking onto the enemy of your choosing. With co-op mainly focusing on controller use, it might come with a few extra hours of getting used to the controls. I played mainly on keyboard, which is definitely easier in my opinion, and while I wish there were some extra keybinds available to slot extra spells to, I'll just have to live with the 3 slots. The spells themselves are broken up into 2 categories, offensive and utility. Offensive spells are pretty straightforward, they deal direct damage to enemies. You'll find spells like magic missiles, slash, and bombard. On the other side, you have utility spells, which sometimes can deal damage, but they are better used for buffing and manipulating the battle arena. Here, you'll find such spells as Levitate, Shield, and Time Warp. I've found that leading the battle with some good utility spells to group together enemies before launching your offensive assault is a great way to effectively cut through the opposition. The depth doesn't end there, as this is a roguelite after all. Of the 20 spells, 14 of them have their own selection of 8 different artifacts that you can find during your runs. Artifacts alter and enhance your spells in various ways, which creates interesting opportunities and synergies between spells. For example, there is an artifact that makes a fully charged levitate spell create a vortex around the enemy that you targeted. This vortex will attract nearby enemies, making this an excellent spell for grouping and holding large amounts of enemies. Pair this with a bombardment spell, and, well, let's just say our monster friends won't have a good time. The joy of this game is finding these artifacts on your own and putting together new synergies on the fly. That being said, if you find a particular artifact that you must have every time, then there's a spell that lets you save one artifact. I personally love Super Compact Instant Tent, which grants me mana flow after casting Time Warp for a few seconds. Mana flow causes my spells to not cost any mana, allowing me to go on the offensive. It doesn't end there. If you want to continue finding ways to optimize your play, then you should know that every single spell can be upgraded 3 times. You can do this by spending your hard-earned experience that you obtain during your runs. Upgraded spells increase their effectiveness in battle. This means higher damage, longer effect time, etc. Essentially, if you manage to fully upgrade all your spells, then you'll be the greatest wizard of all time. This is one of the many grindable features out there, so for all you achievement hunters, just wait. I haven't even gone over what else you can obtain. I could write far more on spells regarding synergies, artifacts, and combos, but you should honestly find those out for yourself, as that's what makes this game fun and replayable. Before I go into achievements, I want to cover the enemies and bosses that you will encounter, as well as what a run looks like. Each run is broken up into floors that you will need to complete until you reach the boss on the final floor. On each floor, you will navigate multiple rooms that will be filled with different types of enemies. Be careful, once you enter a room, you won't be able to leave until you eliminate your foes. Don't worry though, not every room is hostile, as you will also encounter shop and artifact rooms that will help you along your way. That being said, you can find aid in the rooms that require combat, since after defeating every enemy, you'll likely be able to solve a secret that may grant you gold or even an artifact, so it's worth attempting to figure out what the puzzle is in the first place. These puzzles are what put the secret in the name Spells and Secrets, and they can be pretty fun. Once you do a puzzle once, you'll likely encounter it again in a later run, so it can be a little repetitive. However, there are still a few out there that I've encountered that have me scratching my head. I still wish that there was additional diversity in the puzzles, as I feel like I've encountered all that is available after just a few runs. The enemies themselves are a joy to go up against. Most of them are a perfect level of frustration combined with the ability to outwit their different movements, abilities, and weaknesses. There are 8 different species of enemies, and they each have 3 types. You'll find early on that these enemies have certain moments that make them vulnerable. Tracking each enemy's movement and striking them when at their weakest point was honestly one of my favorite features of the game. For example, let's look at these swift foxlings. They can be a hassle and put you in trouble quick. However, if you levitate them at the moment they jump through their portal, they'll be hoisted helplessly in the air, making room for your attacks. I may have found myself evil laughing during these moments, but honestly they kinda deserved it. Don't be fooled though, the strategy doesn't work on every enemy. The spear species are essentially immune to any negative effects that come from you levitating them. However, when they open their large mouths, they make themselves vulnerable for a split second, so make sure that you look out. In addition to the enemy diversity, each time you enter a room, some enemies have the chance to spawn as large or elite enemies. This results in them being far more deadly and have a much higher health pool. As you progress deeper in the game and raise the difficulty level, elites will spawn more frequently, requiring you to be as deadly as possible, or else you might find yourself in some trouble. That being said, you have a nifty spell at your disposal that lets you tame a monster of your choosing to aid you in battle. Every monster is able to be tamed, even the elite ones. Be careful though, it can be a risky task as it takes some time to fully tame them, and during its duration they are free to launch attacks your way, so make sure that you find ways to incapacitate them before playing them a song. After you reach the end of the floor, you're able to spawn the floor boss, which, unlike their monster counterparts, you'll find a wizard or witch that is ready to end your run. To start, I found these fights to be easier than some of the rooms on the floor, since you have a lot of tools at your disposal to be effective in a duel. However, once you raise the difficulty just once, every floor boss will spawn 2 bosses instead of 1. This was the first wrench in my runs, as it was a very difficult fight the first few times. I was still getting used to the controls and managing my spells, which was fine when I only had to worry about 1 boss. Adding a second boss showed how naive and unskilled I was. I ended up persevering and becoming better in the end, but they definitely caught me off guard. That being said, I will note that I found spells and secrets to be pretty easy. I've played a lot of video games in my life and consider myself to be an above average gamer in terms of skill, especially when it comes to roguelites. However, I think most people will find this game to be simple when compared to the others in the genre. This is a good and not so good thing in my opinion. I love the fact that developers made a game so accessible to gamers in a genre that can be very unforgiving. However, I wish that there were additional options to push the difficulty to the next level. You do unlock additional difficulties as you progress, however, it only goes so far until you cap out. I wish that there were at least 3 additional options that would push my wizarding limits. One of the key driving elements that makes roguelites replayable and enjoyable is the ability to increase their difficulty. This can be done in a multitude of ways, but I would love to see some new floors added after the current final boss. Coming from a classic roguelike, Binding of Isaac initially ended with the Mom boss fight, before adding tons of new floors and content. If that future never comes, there's still plenty of content to play to get your money's worth, and that's not even mentioning the vast amount of achievements to obtain. I can't truly explain the joy I felt when I first opened the achievement case through my magical smartphone. I was greeted with every type of achievement you can imagine. Enemy slaying, spell use, accolades achieved during the runs. There's so much here that will have you spending hours trying to complete them all. Don't worry, it isn't only a shiny medal that you get. Completing achievements will unlock cool and fancy cosmetics to dress up your character in. On top of this, you also have a reputation level tied to each of the 4 student factions, with their own cosmetics tied to them as well. So there's definitely a ton to do in this magical world. Also, you don't have to do this all alone. Spells and Secrets comes with a fully fledged co-op feature that lets you play with a friend. I can't speak too much on this yet, as I haven't had the chance to explore with the other half of the Pillow Fort. However, we plan on playing through together so that we can put our thoughts out for you. I will note that if you're playing on Steam and you want to play with another friend, you'll need to do it through a remote play. There currently isn't online co-op available, which is a slight bummer, but from our testing it seems that the connection is quite stable. That being said, at least one player will be required to use a controller, so keep that in mind. So, there are my thoughts on Spells and Secrets. If you can't tell, I very much enjoyed my time exploring the school and castle of Greifenstein. It may not be the most difficult roguelite, however, it is a great introduction for new players and is a relaxing time for veterans. The spell diversity and management adds a new layer of interaction and provides an excellent outlet to strategize your play. As I mentioned, we need to look more into its co-op features to provide insight. However, if it runs anything like playing it solo, which it feels like it does, then this should be on anyone's must-have couch co-op list. So for that, I'm giving this the Pillow Fort stamp of approval. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure that you leave a like, and if you want to stay up to date with our latest content, then check out that subscribe button. We post almost daily with reviews, first impressions, funny shorts, and so much more.